Allen Company, 47 years young and a proud sponsor, wishes OOIDA all the best as you celebrate 50 years.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Reddick.
Each month, the U.S. government releases its jobs report, and each month we report on how many trucking jobs were lost or gained. But what does that mean for the trucking industry at large? And more importantly, what do all those numbers mean for you and your livelihood? David Spencer, Vice President of Market Intelligence at Arrive Logistics, helps us put it all into context. A truck driver in New York is being applauded after he maneuvered his truck to stop a fleeing suspect in the shooting of a state trooper. Landline Now's Ashley Blackford spoke with him about what happened and how he says he was just in the right place at the right time. And finally, the spot market is starting to heat up. Ashley has the latest numbers from Robert Rouse of DAT in today's Market Update. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. Our top story today. As expected, the House Appropriations Committee advanced a transportation funding bill on Tuesday, a bill that still includes a provision that would prohibit the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration from imposing a speed limiter mandate. It was a contentious hearing, to say the least. Democrats and Republicans clashed over a GOP amendment to the bill that would strip money from a handful of LGBTQ centers. The committee went into recess 3 separate times after heated debate, but finally adopted the amendment along party lines, although it's unlikely to get past the Democrat-controlled Senate. Also included in the House funding bill, a prohibition on the collection of certain tolls in Oregon and Pennsylvania, and the continuance of the Under-21 pilot program. The bill now heads to the House floor for consideration. A bipartisan group of U.S. lawmakers wants the Environmental Protection Agency to reverse course on its new emission rules for heavy-duty trucks. 32 members of Congress, comprised of Democrats and Republicans from both the House and Senate, signed on to a letter directed toward EPA Administrator Michael Regan. The center of their concerns, Phase 3 of the greenhouse gas emission standards for heavy-duty vehicles, which are set to take effect with model year 2028 trucks. In their letter, the lawmakers say they have heard from constituents concerned that this rule will fundamentally transform the trucking industry for the worse. The members of Congress said the EPA should take the affordability of future heavy-duty trucks into consideration, along with the ability of commercial charging infrastructure to support the upcoming demand. For a rule of this magnitude, the letter notes that an advance notice of proposed rulemaking is typically issued first to collect more data and prepare a viable rule. But in this case, EPA issued a notice of proposed rulemaking with a comment period of just 50 days and has denied requests for extensions. In closing, the lawmakers asked the EPA to consider their concerns and ensure any rule appropriately reflects the possible ramifications for the trucking industry, which they say is a vital sector of the economy. Yellow's problems keep piling up. Some 22,000 employees are now threatening to strike starting Monday. It's in response to Yellow withholding pension and health care payments. $50 million in benefits were supposed to go out last weekend, but the company held them back to, quote, preserve liquidity, as they put it. Yellow said it plans to withhold those benefits again in August as they try to regain their financial footing. The Wall Street Journal quotes Yellow officials as saying they intend to repay the funds with interest immediately upon securing additional financing. But it's anyone's guess as to when that might happen. Yellow is teetering on bankruptcy, trying to finance more than $1 billion in loans that are due next year. The tolling rate on the Pennsylvania Turnpike is going up soon. The Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission has approved a 5% increase for all Easy Pass and toll-by-plate customers. The commission says that means the most common toll for a Class 5 tractor-trailer will go up by 80 cents to $15.20 for Easy Pass customers, and by $1.50 to nearly $31 for toll-by-plate customers. This is the 16th year in a row the commission has raised the toll rate on the Turnpike. The new prices go into effect on January 7th. A jury in Indiana has awarded $44 million to a couple injured in a crash involving a semi. Cynthia Croft was left partially paralyzed in the crash, which happened in 2016. Croft's car was hit from behind by the tractor-trailer, driven by a driver employed by Viper Transportation and PR Rentals. A jury awarded Croft $43.5 million in 2021. A retrial was requested, and the second jury tacked on an additional $500,000 to the verdict late last week. Meanwhile, a new study says the U.S. trucking industry is being inundated with nuclear verdicts. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce Institute for Legal Reform found that verdicts in trucking accident cases have skyrocketed over the last 10 years, despite a decreased rate of serious trucking crashes over that same time frame. The institute said the industry is, quote, under siege by litigation. They reviewed more than 150 verdicts and settlements over a nearly 3-year period. That began in the summer of 2020 and found that the mean total for verdicts was $27.5 million. For settlements, it was close to $800,000. That's despite the rate of fatal crashes dropping by more than 34% since the year 2000. In other words, the study said that even though trucking is getting safer, verdicts are getting bigger. The research did provide some possible solutions. Those include requiring transparency in claiming medical damages, limiting medical damages to reasonable amounts, and permitting evidence if a plaintiff was not wearing a seatbelt when calculating damages. A former CDL skills tester from Idaho is going to prison. Kelly Goodman had already pleaded guilty, admitting to taking at least $38,000 in bribes in exchange for giving out passing scores on the Idaho Commercial Driver's License Skills Test. A U.S. District Court sentenced Goodman to 24 months in prison and a $5,000 fine. Goodman was also ordered to pay back the money they received in bribes. A Georgia-based trucking company has filed for bankruptcy. Big J Express filed its petition in a U.S. bankruptcy court earlier this month, citing a significant drop in revenues. According to FMCSA's Safer website, Big J Express had 37 drivers and 37 power units and hauled general freight. XPO has expanded its capacity in the Atlanta area. The company says it recently added 46 doors to its service center in Norcross, Georgia. It's now a 152-door facility. In a news release, XPO said it's all part of their strategic plan, adding new doors in markets that could use more capacity and responding to demand. They hope to add 900 new doors across North America by early 2024 and say they're on target to meet that goal. And finally, the final numbers from the 44th Annual Walcott Truckers Jamboree are in. Organizers say more than 46,000 people from more than 24 states and 2 Canadian provinces spent time in Walcott, Iowa for the truck show. That includes more than 150 exhibits, a super truck beauty contest with 108 registered contestants, and more over 3 days. Now they start planning for the 45th Annual Walcott Truckers Jamboree, which is on the schedule for July 11th through the 13th at the Iowa 80 Truck Stop in 2024. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. Congratulations to Michael I. McPherson of Port Dover, Ontario. He's received the OOIDA Safe Driving Award for 27 years of safe, accident-free driving. That's the equivalent of a car driver going 203 years without causing a single accident. The OOIDA Safe Driving Award program is sponsored by Shell Rotella. And if you're interested in receiving the Safe Driving Award, you can find a link to more information at our website, landlinenow.com. Again, that website, landlinenow.com. If you'd like to join OOIDA, you can do it at a discount. Just call the membership department during business hours at 816-229-5791. You can join the association or renew your membership for 2 years for $50, a $40 discount. You can support the OOIDA Mary Johnston Scholarship by donating to the fund. Send tax-deductible donations to OOIDA Foundation, Inc., 1 Northwest OOIDA Drive, Grain Valley, Missouri, 64029. Next, Scott Thompson talks trucking jobs with David Spencer of Arrive Logistics, and Ashley Blackford reports on a truck driver who helped stop a fleeing suspect. We'll be back in just a moment with more of the show. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
You trust PrePass for more bypasses? Now let PrePass help with tolls. PrePass toll service means lower cost, one invoice for all tolls, and fewer violations. Created by truckers for truckers. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
Attention all truckers, Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I want to talk to you about those dreaded tax problems. I know you want to keep on trucking and not even think about them, but let's face it, they're not going away all on their own. You need professional help. I've been helping truckers put their tax problems in the rearview mirror for years. truckers, I can help you too. Call me now for a free consultation at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com. It's like I always say, keep your eyes on the road, I'll keep mine on the IRS. 888-557-4020.
Welcome back to Landline Now. You probably hear us report on jobs numbers within the trucking industry from time to time, and while it's easy to understand increases and declines, it's a bit harder to fully understand what it means for the industry at large, and more specifically, what it means for you. So we're going to do our best to gain a better understanding of those things with the help of our next guest. David Spencer is the Vice President of Market Intelligence at Arrive Logistics, and he joins us on the line now. David, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me this morning.
Yes, thank you for speaking with us here. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. You can hopefully help us make sense of everything that's going on out there. And I kind of want to start by zeroing in on the latest numbers and then zooming out to the larger picture as we continue this conversation. So let's start with the kind of the small picture here. The Bureau of Labor Statistics says we are down about 200 trucking jobs in June. Let's start with the decline there. It's a small decline, but it is a decline. Do we have any idea as to what's behind that?
You have to kind of look at the overall trucking conditions when you start to look at the shifts in total jobs from month to month. I mean, I think also a big factor is sort of what is the perspective of the carriers right now? What are they prioritizing? Are they looking to retain drivers in the event that we see a shift in demand conditions or for truckload services or vice versa? But it's kind of a balancing act, right? I think throughout the year here, we've seen a little bit of a defiance of what you'd expect to see given the conditions. But, you know, just looking at and zooming in on June for now, I think a job loss of 200 jobs or so, certainly never want to see any jobs, but we're kind of looking at as a continuation of the current plateau. More of a flat month-to-month number than any kind of major change.
Yeah, and as you point out there, I think we have to kind of take all of this into account when we look at declines and increases and what it might mean for the transportation industry as a whole. The sector there was down, I think, total about 7,000 jobs in June. I know we've had a few months of decline now in 2023. You mentioned the carriers there. You mentioned, obviously, they're looking at all of the conditions that are out there. Are we seeing some belt tightening out there? Is there something bigger at play here? Obviously, post-pandemic, we're coming out of a boom. Are we just kind of coming back down to earth here a little bit, or what are we seeing?
Actually, February is where we saw the largest decline this year of around just over 5,000 jobs after revisions. And then overall since January, we're down about 1,700 jobs total. I referenced January because that was the high watermark, so to speak, for total trucking jobs or total employment in truck transportation. But after that decline, things have been relatively stable. In fact, we've shown growth month over month from March through May, slight pullback in June, but really being down from January. Still, I think that's no surprise, but overall level, pretty level for the course of the year here. And I think to me, that's signaling carriers are putting a premium on retaining drivers right now. I think, certainly with the market conditions the way they are, the declining spot rate environment, declining rate environment overall, we've certainly seen, tightening profits on the carrier side, and that certainly is going to begin to test carriers' savings here as we get in the back half of the year.
Here's a dumb question, maybe the first of many, but is there an ideal level in terms of increases, decreases? I know all of this is relative and it all depends on so many different factors that are out there, so I know it's probably not a simple answer. But would we like to see things, continue to go up? Would we like them to stay stable? Is there a right level, I guess, is the question here for what we're seeing with jobs?
Well, I guess it depends on who you are. If you're a shipper, it's certainly the excess employment here is leading to excess capacity in the marketplace, and that's allowing, shippers to continue to capitalize on, year-over-year rate declines, and that's certainly been, an advantage for them over the course of this, right? So, stable employment in trucking is something that would mean shippers would get a continuation of sort of the current conditions. But, from a trucking sector, it's a little bit odd, right? If you want to see an improving rate environment, first you might need to see some capacity bled out of the market, and so that's going to come from a continuation of what we're calling kind of equilibrium market conditions here, and a soft spot market leading to a pullback in capacity, largely owner operators or smaller fleets that spun up over the course of the pandemic when the rate environment was high.
Yeah. Is there one particular factor? Obviously, the trucking industry is dependent on so many different factors, fuel prices, construction, retail sales, the list goes on and on. Is there one particular thing that's kind of lurking out there that you see as particularly weighing down the trucking industry in terms of jobs? And you mentioned rates there as well. Is there something out there that kind of concerns you as you see it right now?
I don't know if concern is the right word. I think, our view is really largely focused on kind of trying to understand the supply and the demand side. So essentially, how many trucks are there out there, and then what's going on with demand. I think if you're talking about concerns, you're probably looking at the demand side and thinking, hey, is there any reason to expect further decline in truckload demand? Obviously, an economic recession of any significant nature would lead to a pullback in demand, and further, kick that target down the field that we're chasing, so to speak, from an equilibrium standpoint. But largely demand has held up relatively well, considering sort of the pullbacks we've seen in overall, sort of spending. I guess consumer spending remains strong. It's really been this inventory destocking that's led to a pullback in volumes, right? We've seen strong labor markets, strong consumer spending, a lot of buying. I think really we're still working through that over excess inventory that built up, as retailers overordered on sort of the back end of the reopening.
Yeah, and I think that's partly, obviously I am not an economist, I don't know if you could tell here, but that's what's been confusing, I think, from me, looking at it from just a normal person's point of view, right? We've been hearing it feels like forever now, about a looming recession. Now I saw recently Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen doesn't believe the U.S. is actually going to enter recession territory. So we've got, these conflicting sort of feelings out there in terms of where we are and where kind of the sentiment is, I think the feeling as well. Where are we in terms of the greater economy right now? How would you describe it? Because, again, just looking at it from a normal person's point of view, it's pretty confusing because there are people hurting out there.
Absolutely. Want to be mindful of sort of the individual components like that we see, right? People hurting. But you look at the large, nationwide numbers, looking at the job market, you still see tight job market. You still see wage increases. You're still seeing, relatively strong consumer spending. Our kind of viewpoint on sort of, the canary in the coal mine here is really that labor market. If we continue to see strong jobs numbers overall, obviously there's some signs of that cracking as of late, but we see strong jobs numbers overall, low unemployment rate, strong wage numbers. Our belief is that those numbers are really the ones to look at to get a feel for overall consumer demand. And that consumer demand is what's going to drive truckload volumes. We have seen contraction in the manufacturing space. However, automotive, demand does appear to continue to be high. The housing market has declined, but it showed some relative strength despite increased interest rates. So overall, our view is pretty high on that. The economy is doing pretty well, right? And especially all things considered. Those conversations about a potential recession and not having it hit yet. My guess is as good as anyone's on if we'll see one or not. But again, I think we come back to, as long as we continue to see strong labor market numbers and results, as well as strong consumer spending, our belief is that we're going to see pretty consistent truckload demand, especially as we see these inventory destocking efforts be completed here and look towards improving potential retail imports as we get back into next year.
Yeah, and just getting back to kind of what I was saying there about the way people are feeling versus what we're seeing out there with the unemployment rate being relatively low and consumer spending being where it is right now. Am I wrong in kind of sensing that this is a very weird time? I mean, from an economist's point of view, is it kind of confounding or kind of weird, I guess, for lack of a better term, for even you?
Not many of us have been on the back end of a pandemic before to see sort of this bullwhip effect of, how retailers have, reacted and responded. We've seen the Fed, react by rising interest rates, and after the government pumped a bunch of money into the economy to stimulate sort of economic activity, which really worked, right? We saw the trucking environment really pick up, and trucking tends to be a really good indicator of where we're at in the economy, and really where I have my strongest viewpoint. And we've seen it pull back here, but we still see growth over pre-pandemic levels, and that gives us a lot of confidence that the economy is doing really well, largely speaking overall. There's a lot of reason to be optimistic about where we're at and where we could see things, transpire into next year. However, there is definitely downside risk to be paying attention to. So certainly a weird time, and a lot of things will catch all of us off guard. I'm sure of that.
You hit on an important point there because, again, a bunch of numbers running around out there, flying around. For your average everyday truck driver out there, maybe they're an owner-operator, they see these numbers, they're hearing us talk here, and maybe they're wondering, what does this mean for me? Can I take this information and can I do something with it to better my situation? Is there something that someone out there listening to this can glean from our conversation that maybe you would suggest a step they take or some advice generally that you would give to them?
Sure. I mean, the opportunity that's out there, it exists, right? And I think what happens as we see these market fluctuations is where the opportunity is shifts and changes. We saw tensions and challenges at West Coast ports lead to a great shift in market share to the East Coast ports, right? So carriers that may have been in the running up and down the middle of the country out to the West Coast, we've seen if you decide, hey, maybe there's greater opportunity to find freight back to the middle of the country from the East Coast and sort of shift their network. Let's say certain industries are starting to pull back while others are seeing increased activity, right? Oil and gas production is up this year, right? Maybe a commodity that you're hauling or an area of the country that you're moving in may have seen some disruption or some shifts, but if you're open to looking for that opportunity, I think looking for where that opportunity has shifted might be a good place to start.
Being flexible. That's kind of the idea here, it sounds like.
Transportation is a huge piece of the economy. It may slow down and speed up, but it's always going to be there, right? And I think lasting through the ups and downs, it's a very cyclical market, right? And we've seen that over the years here. We've seen several cycles over the last decade or so. And, down markets always feel like they're never going to end. And, up markets always feel like they end too soon. So, the ups and downs, ride the roller coaster, so to speak.
Absolutely. Yeah. It feels like the roller coaster has been going on for a while now, and it will continue, it seems like. David, real quick here, where can people go if they want more information, courtesy of Arrive Logistics?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, arrivelogistics.com is a great place to start. We have regular content that we're publishing, and that's available through our Insights page, arrivelogistics.com. You could Google Arrive Insights. That'll get you there as well. We put out a rate forecast and a monthly market update. You could reach out to me. I'm very active on LinkedIn, David Spencer, and happy to engage and provide our thoughts and insights to anyone that is interested in talking about it.
David, plenty of food for thought here. We appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much. Appreciate being here.
Our thanks to David Spencer of Arrive Logistics. Landline Now is back in just a moment.
Firestone tires are for more of everything. More miles for every tire dollar, and more confidence in your fleet. At Firestone, we help fleets save with dependable value. Find your local Firestone dealer today at firestonetire.com/dealer.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off Truckstop Load Board Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2023 when you purchase Load Board Pro.
Landline Now, welcome back. A truck driver in New York is being commended after he stopped a shooting suspect from fleeing the scene after the man shot a state trooper on I-88. Tim Van Ostren joins me. He has been trucking for about 40 years now. He hauls logs and pulpwood. Tim, can you run me through what happened on June 16th?
Pretty normal day, going down an interstate with a load of pulpwood on, and seen a trooper pull a car over. And so we get over in the left lane, slow down to go around when any emergency vehicles. When I got up just about to the trooper car, see somebody stick something out the window. I wasn't 100% sure what that was at that time. But anyways, what it was, he was taking a shot at the trooper with a pistol. And by now I'm right up to the trooper car, or the car he pulled over, and I could see the bullets flying out of the back window of the car that the trooper had pulled over. They were shooting at the trooper. I got stopped as fast as I could, and the car tried to take off, and I got slowed down enough to kind of turn into the car and put it against the guardrails and stop it so the trooper could take control of the situation.
Wow. What was going through your head during all this?
That all happened so fast. It was a split-second decision, pulling the car. Actually, before I pulled into the car, a pickup truck had stopped dead in the hammer lane, and I actually bumped that pickup from behind. So between me being on my brakes hard and bumping that pickup got me slowed down enough to even do what I did. And that was pulling the car when it was trying to take off from the trooper while it was still shooting at the trooper. So when I pulled into the car, that stopped the car, and they had a pretty good shootout. The suspects ended up getting out of the car, running up in the woods, and they caught one of them right away. And the other one, by the time the troopers got to him, had committed suicide, the shooter.
Did you stay in your truck once you had gotten the other vehicle stopped, or did you get out?
No, I got out of my, basically stood beside it. Just because it started shooting at the truck, I wanted to have a little more metal between me and the car, not just the passenger's door. So, no, I just got out and stood beside my truck.
Okay.
I didn't want to move around and distract the trooper from anything, so I just kind of stood still.
Wow.
It was a pretty tense few minutes there. A pretty good shootout they were having, and trooper was 110% professional. He really, really had it under control. He's been on the force for many years, and plus he was a Marine, so luckily he had great training.
Have you had a chance to talk to the trooper at all?
I haven't talked to him yet. He got wounded during all this, and I don't know. I just thought I'd let him have his space until things calm down a little bit, but I will definitely go meet him. Tell him how thankful I am that he didn't get hurt worse.
The whole situation, it sounds like something kind of out of a movie, the way kind of everything played out.
It's exactly something you'd see on television. Exactly. Yes.
And afterwards, what happened? How long did the whole thing take?
From the time I pulled into the car until backup arrived, it was close to 10 minutes. So quite a while when people were shooting at a state trooper.
Yes, yeah, for sure. Were you scared or worried at all?
I wasn't worried for myself at all, no. I was worried for the trooper because, you just don't see people shooting at a trooper every day. That's really unheard of, So for myself, no, I wasn't scared. I don't know why. I probably should have been, but I wasn't.
And have you ever witnessed or been involved in anything like this before?
No, I live way out in the country, and actually I live on a dead-end road. I live a pretty simple, quiet life, to be honest with you. So nothing like that, no. I was just at the right place at the right time. That's really all it was.
Now, how did your truck fare in all of this?
Well, my truck didn't get a lot of damage. It was about $6,000 for parts, but I got all the parts within a couple of days, had it back together. We do mechanic work ourselves, my son and I, and had it back together, and you'd never know it was in an accident right now.
What kind of damage did happen to it?
Oh, front bumper, we have logger bumpers. They're very expensive, but they're really heavy duty. That was $3,150, but the grill, one of the supports for the bumper underneath, it was a bunch of little stuff, but it adds up, and parts are expensive now.
And when you kind of maneuvered into the car, was there any this is, you knew where you should hit it, or was it just, like you said, kind of right place, right time?
I heard the car accelerate and looked in my mirror quick, and I could see it was trying to take off. And I just basically was cut off, but it run underneath the same time trying to get out of there because there was a solid row of guardrails there.
Mm-hmm.
So once I turned into it about the same time it hit me, and luckily it pinned it against the guardrails and they couldn't go anywhere.
Wow.
So it wasn't aiming for any specific thing. No, it was basically cut in front of it to stop it, really.
Gosh.
But we did hit, that's all.
Wow. What has the reaction been from your family and your friends when they heard what happened and that you were involved?
Oh, I don't know. Everybody's just glad that nobody got hurt any worse than they really did, and wasn't surprised that I would do something like that. I mean, I would always help someone in need, in a situation like that, especially. But I don't know. Just they were surprised by it all. You don't hear about that every day up here where we live. I mean, we're like a pretty rural area, and even where that happened, it's a little busier. But we're a couple hundred miles north of New York City, so stuff like that doesn't typically happen up here.
If you said, once the trooper is recovered, you'd like to meet him, what do you think you'll say when you do meet him?
I don't know. I'll be just really happy that he didn't get hurt any worse, that he was such a professional. I mean, he never even flinched when he got hit. I mean, he was really, really hands-on. You could tell what I could see of it. Now, the truck was blocking my view of a lot of it. I could hear a lot of it. But he was just textbook. Everything was, his training kicked in, and he really, really knew what he was doing.
Wow. Well, yeah, it was quite something. I mean, there was a picture of it. I don't know where it was, kind of what angle it was taken from, but yeah, just just seeing it. I mean, like I said, it just looked like something that would happen in a movie. So
exactly, yeah. He, like I said, he did everything 110% right. He was really good.
Lou Esposito is an OOIDA board member and town supervisor in upstate New York. He has been in contact with the state police as well as Tim. Lou, can you talk to me about your involvement?
Well, our town owns the building, the substation that the state police is in, and I went over and talked with him about the role that Tim played in this, and they verified everything that was on the video that I saw, how he intentionally put his truck into that car to stop it. And according to the state police, he said he did a great job, and they were really, really pleased, and he really helped out quite a bit. I also asked him if they would be interested in doing an interview with Landline, and of course the state police said it's an ongoing investigation, and we can't, because I know all of the state police that are housed out of that building.
Mm-hmm.
So they did say that he did a great job, and they were very pleased, and they also said that they were looking at trying to put up a fund for donations to help them pay for the truck. And they said they were going to let me know when they were going to do that, but as of this date, I haven't heard anything back from them.
Mm-hmm.
I was hoping they would, and I would certainly donate to him. Mm-hmm. I know he had the truck up and running a few days after, and he replaced the bumper and a few other things, he said, and he was going to be back on the road. I know he's a logger, and he told me he's been in the logging business his entire life, whether working in the woods or trucking, and right now he's just doing the trucking part of it. And he's usually within a 150-mile radius. And I know where he lives. He lives in upstate New York, about 50 miles from where we are.
Mm-hmm.
But he did a great job, and I spoke with him on the phone. He was very, very happy that OOIDA has been in touch with him, and he's a member now. So I haven't met him personally, just talking with him on the phone, but I certainly hope that we can raise some funds to help him pay for. I know it's quite costly for a new bumper, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And whatever else.
Were you surprised by, and I myself didn't meet him, but spoke with him over the phone, just how humble he was about the whole situation?
Well, he was very humble about it. He, like I said, he really didn't want any news people calling him. As a matter of fact, when the state police, when I went over and asked for his name, they said he asked not to have anybody contact him. He said, so we'll send him an email that you're interested in, and we'll give him your information and your phone number. And he did call me that night and told me exactly what happened, probably the same thing he told you. Mm-hmm. And he just said that he didn't want the press calling him.
Yeah.
That was he was more concerned about.
When you had heard about kind of how everything played out, I know myself, it sounded like something from Hollywood, from a movie.
Well, anybody that would come up on a scene like that where a state trooper was shot and he would intervene like that and probably risking his own life to stop it and try to help and put his truck into it and damage his equipment, his livelihood, you have to commend him for that.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, from what the state police said and what he said, the guy got out and ran into the woods and they finally found him and apparently he committed suicide. But I certainly do commend him for the action he took. And he shows what truck drivers are really all about when they see something like this happen and they try to intervene and help out. I really do commend him. You get a lot of bad press about truckers, but this is one story that really shows that truckers really do want to help.
And have you heard how the officer is that did get shot?
Yeah, he's doing very well. He was released from the hospital that night.
Okay.
He was shot in the arm, from what I understand, what they told me, and he was taken to the hospital and he was released that night. Apparently, it wasn't as severe as they thought at first. So he was still able to walk and got in the ambulance and took him to the hospital, local hospital here in Schenectady, and he was released about 4 or 5 hours after the incident. So,
wow.
And he's doing very well from what the state police have told me. Like I said, I know all of the most of the state police in there. They come and go.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, our town owns the building, so I know everybody there, and we have a very good working relationship with the police, the state police,
mm-hmm.
and the sheriff's department. They're on the other side of our town hall building.
Lou, any final thoughts?
Well, like I said, over there, it's nice to have good press from truckers over here like him. And a lot of times we receive bad press, and this is certainly one instance where it shows how truckers really react to something like this.
That was Lou Esposito from New York State. Louis Pugh joins me now. He is Executive Vice President for the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Louis, OOIDA gave Tim a membership. Can you talk to me about that?
Well, we think for what he did, it was the least we could do, and we're glad to do it. He tore up his truck and stuff, but he did it for the right reasons, and, it wasn't intentional, of course, but that's what happened, and he had some expense there, and with talking to him and Lou talking to him and stuff, we found out his story, and how he's been a trucker all these years and everything, and he did the right thing. That's what people forget and don't realize. There's a lot of little things like this that happen, whether it's an enforcement issue or somebody's broke down alongside the road or in an accident or something. Truckers are the people that are there first and help them and save these people's lives and risk their own lives to do so. So we just figured somebody like that, they deserve something nice.
Yeah, and this is something he didn't have to do. He could have just kept driving.
Yeah, exactly, and probably a lot of people would, so good for him for not. And I talked to him myself personally and thanked him for that. And this is a thing that I say all the time at CVSA and FMCSA and other places that, law enforcement, you need to work with truckers because they're out there with you, and the highway safety is number one to them too, and you never know when a trucker may be saving your life.
Thank you, Louie. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackford. Stay tuned for more after this.
Forget accuracy, weigh your truck on a CAT scale.
When you weigh on a CAT scale, you get a no excuses guarantee. You can now save time weighing by using your smartphone. Find out more at weightmytruck.com.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Landline Now. Welcome back. There are a number of critical questions you need to answer in order to run a successful trucking business. Among the most important of those questions are, where's the freight going to be, and how much is it going to pay? Today, Landline Now senior correspondent Ashley Blackford will bring us answers to both of those important questions with a look at this week's freight markets with the folks from DAT. Here's Ashley now with the report.
Thanks, Mark, and hello again to Robert Rouse of DAT. How are you doing today, Robert?
I'm doing great, Ashley. Thanks for asking.
Now, last week, we talked about a fairly slow holiday week. As the summer season rolls on, did you see the spot market heat up at all?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely saw it heat up a little bit. After a 37% plunge during the 4th of July holiday week, the number of the loads posted actually increased by 29.1% last week to 1.382 million loads. But put into context, that's about the lowest amount in the last 7 years. So it didn't bounce back as well as we normally would see it. So that's definitely something that we're looking at. When we switch over to trucks, the number of trucks on the Members Edge Load Board also increased by about 22%, up to about 375,000 trucks last week. The total number of trucks was about 16% higher year over year and about 1% lower compared to the same week in 2019. So far this year, we continue to see 2019 being a consistent milepost that we can compare ourselves to, and we're seeming to be close with both loads and trucks this week. While loads and trucks both increased over the last week, they did so in pretty much a comparable amount when you look at 29% and 22%. And what that meant was that the load-to-truck ratios were pretty much unchanged for all three equipment types from the week previously, from the holiday week. And really what that means is changes in the load-to-truck ratio usually signal changes in the spot rates. And when the load-to-truck ratio moves higher, rates usually follow because brokers and shippers have tons of freight to move. However, last week we actually saw the benchmark spot, van, and reefer rates actually decline slightly. The national benchmark broker-to-carrier spot rates for van and reefers both decreased. So when we look at vans, they came in at $2.08 per mile. That's actually down 1 cent per mile from the previous week on a national level. And when we look at reefers, they took the biggest hit. They were at $2.41 a mile. That's down almost 4 cents. So that's a pretty big thing to look at. And lastly, flatbeds, they came in at $2.55 a mile. That's unchanged from the previous week. So that's fairly good, but we would expect some movement upward after a holiday week. So it's something for us to watch as July continues to roll on, whether or not we see any movement in any of those rates.
With no major holidays until September, what commodities should owner-operators expect to haul over the next month?
That's a great question. And actually, over this last weekend, I was walking to a local Walmart with a good friend of mine who's an elementary school teacher, and we both got a quick reminder that the school year may have just ended, but shoppers are already getting ready for the back to school in the fall. And according to the June National Retail Federation report, 25% of back to school and back to college shoppers are already placing orders. And that's compared to 17% just 5 years ago. So they're getting a really huge jump on back to school shopping. Also, 68% plan to take advantage of major retail sales events such as Independence Day, Amazon Prime Day, and even Labor Day, which comes up in September. According to the NRF, 80% expect to see higher prices when they shop for back to school and back to college this year, even with concerns about the state of the U.S. economy. The June NRF study actually reported 83% of shoppers expect clothing and accessories to be higher this year, followed by school supplies, 79%, and shows 69%. And a large percentage of back to school and back to college supplies actually come from overseas. So ocean cargo is expected to peak in August. According to a recent report from the NRF and the Global Port Tracker, at just over 2.2 million 20-foot equivalent units, June import volumes were up 2% month over month, but still trailing June 2022 by about 17%, according to the IHS Market and Peers report. Compared to the June TEU import volume as far back as 2015, last month's volume was 7%, or about 152,000, which would suggest next month may in fact be the peak for this year. So, we're definitely looking at that. And so we wanted to dig in and kind of look at a couple of those markets to see kind of how that's impacting there. And when we look at containerized import volumes, they actually increased by 17% last month in the Port of Los Angeles. And as it does, a considerable amount of the volume finds its way onto the spot market for warehouse market moves. So a couple of those on the Los Angeles to Stockton lane, loads moved were up to 7% month over month, following last week's 23% increase. And available capacity actually tightened slightly, with spot rates actually increasing 3 cents per mile, up to $3.19 per mile on that lane. That's actually the highest since last September, but it's still about 64 cents per mile lower than it was the previous year. Another warehouse market that's connected to the Trans-Pacific trade lanes is Los Angeles to Phoenix, where loads moved increased by about 25% last week. And that pushed spot rates up about 18 cents per mile to $3.40 per mile. Definitely something to look at. When we look at DAT's market condition forecast, which is a way that we look to see if we see capacity tightening in a market or not, we looked at Los Angeles, Stockton, and Phoenix, and all should continue to have tight capacity over this next week. So those should be some good outbound markets for owner-operators as that back-to-school goods still come into the market.
With a changing economy, do you have any tips or tricks that owner-operators can utilize to help their business be profitable?
Yeah, this is over the course of my career with DAT, this is something I love talking to drivers about because everybody has a few different ways of doing that. Owner-operators and small fleet profitability defied all odds and improved actually in June due to rising spot rates and falling diesel prices. After several months of teetering on the edge of a 2019 repeat, when the trucking industry saw a record number of bankruptcies, it looks like carriers might be seeing some relief. There's a couple ways that they could be looking at that. I know we all want to ensure that we don't see a repeat of 2019 again. That was a pretty bleak time to be a carrier. However, there are a ton of really great lessons that we could take away from that, that owner-operators that were able to successfully navigate those markets can use today. Due to the market cycles and your equipment type, you may have a couple months that are tighter than others. So if you're, hauling reefer, winter months are going to be a little bit tighter. Same with flatbed, or if you're hauling vans, there's certain times of the month that you might have a little bit tougher or tighter quarters. So one of the top tips that always jumped out to me is spreading your fixed payments across 10 months instead of 12 months. And this allows you to kind of weather those down cycles and ensure that you can keep running, even if it's at a little bit lower or tighter on your operating cost. It makes it a little bit easier for you to do that. So basically what you would do is for your truck payment or something like that, you would add up your full 12 months of payments and then divide that by 10. So that way you're paying a little bit more across those 10 months, and you have that extra 2 payments ready to go for those 2 months that you may not have as good as income or revenue for those times.
All right. Robert, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Ashley. Appreciate it.
That was Robert Rouse with DAT. Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Ashley. That's our program for today. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
Chrome, and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us.
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit ooida.com.